Welcome back to Irish Illustrated Insider. It is Monday, February 23rd. Guys, the snow is back in a big way in South Bend.
Ooh.
2 hour delays for schools. I think we have 10 inches on the ground again, which it was nice there for a week not having it. But a lot of winter sports took place for Notre Dame's non-football program. Good weekend for number 7 ND lacrosse beating Georgetown. Good weekend for women's basketball and Hannah Hidalgo. I'd say it was a normal weekend for Notre Dame men's basketball, right? And TJP, even Steven for baseball. You mentioned we talked baseball on this pod if they beat LSU, but they did bounce back and beat Indiana.
Yeah, they blew a game though on Friday against Central Florida when they were up 2-0 going into the day. So winning 2 out of 3 would have been what they expected. LSU's pretty much a juggernaut this year. Notre Dame's not ready for that, but great comeback against Indiana. Walk-off hit against Indiana. For the record, I had a walk-off hit against IU
Nice.
in 1982. So
Google it. You win. Google it. Yeah.
full, actually 2 walk-off hits within 3 games, including St. Mary's of Minnesota, which I didn't know existed. Not sure that it still does now, but
I bet they're
Indiana
good at
was one
hockey,
of
and
those.
we will get to that later
I bet
too.
they are.
Hockey. Yeah.
I bet they are. Yep.
News for the Notre Dame football this week is, of course, the NFL Combine. Our Drew Mentok will be there again as he was last year, last 2 years, actually, right? He was there as well prior to working for Irish Illustrated. But he'll have a chance to talk with Love, Price, Fields, Schroff, Wagner, and Raridan. He has a couple of notes to pass along, but he got trumped here by NFL Network's Tom Pelissero saying that he believes Jeremiah Love, along with Arvell Reese, will participate in combine drills, and Love will likely run the 40-yard dash. Drew has followed up JB with he has heard Jadarian Price will also likely run the 40-yard dash.
Yeah, some really good intel just coming in here in the last few minutes from Drew Mintok. Jadarian Price intends to perform this week in Indianapolis, according to his trainer and other people close to him that Drew Mintok has spoken with. His trainer is incredibly confident at the 40 time that Price will run. And Drew learning that Price trained some back in his home area of Texas and then also specifically trained in Dallas. And Drew said that in Dallas he trained with Mo Wells. And Mo Wells has done a lot of work, and he spent 5 weeks with Mo Wells. Sean Cooper is Jadarian Price's trainer for several years, and Drew Mintok has gotten to know him through the years. So some really, really good insight there from Drew Mintok on what to expect. And there's confidence out of the Price camp that he will turn a lot of heads this week in Indianapolis. And he's already number 2 on some boards for running backs in this year's draft, but there's a feeling out of that camp that he can cement that placement.
We've had a lot of 40-yard dashes, Priester, over the last 25 years. You had to be interested, but it wasn't always because they were going to be very fast. I would say about some Notre Dame players. I can't remember a year where you have Love, Price, and Fields, 3 guys running what you think could be top tier at their position 40-yard dashes. I didn't thought about that till this second, but that's an amazing thing. Because remember Miles Boykin broke the internet when he had a 99 athleticism score in his 2019 after the 18 season combine. He had a 4.42 40. I just looked back, 43.5 vertical. Broad jump was 11.8, which is the 99 percentile of wide receivers. I mean, that is insane. But Jeremiah Love, Jadarian Price, and Malachi Fields should have really good combines.
Yeah, I don't think anybody expected Miles to have that type of
I knew it was 40 ahead of
numbers.
Time. Brian Kelly told me, so I did tell Irish Illustrated he would do that on the spot.
Yeah,
but everything else went nuts.
Yeah, and I'm and maybe you guys can pitch in here. I'm trying to interpret the decision by Jeremiah Love to run. I mean, obviously it's coming from a level of confidence that he's going to put out a good number there. Is he trying to? Does he feel like that will lift him to 7 or 8 as opposed to 10 or 11 in the draft? I don't know that you concern yourself with numbers like that, but I guess I expected Price to run. I think Price needs to run, and I agree that he will
might have
run.
run it. He might have run. Most guys just run at their
at pro day. I get that. So one or the other, and he's chosen, I would imagine, to do it there. How many guys run at both? I don't. Well, when you need to improve the one that you didn't do well in, yeah, which is the combine first. But I'm sure Jeremiah Love should have a lot of confidence that he's going to post a good number. Jadarian Price obviously is ready to go, and good for them. Now, Fields, I'm not sure what I'm expecting there. I'm not sure expecting Miles Boykin. We always felt like that was kind of going to be the limiting factor in preventing him from being a first-round draft choice. I mean, what do you guys think that he's prepared to post?
Malachi Fields, I think he is probably a great tester. Malachi Fields, I think he will run
agree.
wonderful and jump out of the gym. Now, I gave Miles Boykin because 4.42 and 43.5 are insane.
Yeah.
So that would push him into, is he going in the first round if he does that?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm with T.O. in terms of I think he'll test incredibly well. I think his strength numbers will also be good. I think he'll also interview incredibly well. I think you'll see these guys shine this week in Indianapolis, and there will be fewer events that they work out in during Notre Dame's Pro Day on March 24th that we first noted a couple of weeks ago. So that's kind of how I see that going. And there'll still be a number of other people who work out at Notre Dame's Pro Day, those guys that aren't headed to the combine. But I think Malachi Fields, those three in particular, Love, Price, and Fields, I think are set for a really big week.
Go ahead, Tim. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm really interested to see what Eli Raridan does, because when the dude when he walks through the door, it's going to be like, oh, okay, that's Eli Raridan from Notre Dame. What kind of numbers will he put? I don't think we know what he's going to test at and what he's going to say for Pro Day, but I'm very interested to see how he tests.
I think he'll jump great. I don't know how he'll run. Maybe save that for Pro Day. I think he'll jump well. I want to put Boykin in perspective, okay? Kyle Hamilton, and we're not going to use the 40 because we know that his 40 wasn't great. He just covers a lot of ground when he plays football. But Miles Boykin outjumped Kyle Hamilton by 5.5 inches.
Wow.
His broad jump was 10 inches more than Kyle Hamilton.
That's incredible.
That's insane. Wow. So that is one of the greatest combine performances. Everything was out of nowhere except the 40. When I put on our board, he's going to run better than 4.47 because Brian Kelly showed me. I don't think I told people I knew why. Brian Kelly showed me his time, and I was like, "What?" When he told me that, he said, because I asked him if Fink was the fastest in the shuttle on the team, because we would assume that, right? How quick he was.
Right.
He goes, actually, he's number 2 behind Boykin. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. And then he showed me Boykin had the fastest 42, and I was just shocked. But I think Fields is going to surprise. It's a lot of talk about the combine, pre-combine, but it's become must-see TV, man. People love this event. And if guys like Love and Arvell Reese will run, people will continue loving the event, because I feel like it waned last year with nobody that was any good deciding they needed to run. Ashton Genty, of course, waited for his Pro Day. That was something people would have wanted to watch. I think more people have just been hurt more for it, Tim, for doing something in the combine. And every time you do it your own Pro Day, you always get the stats from Notre Dame, which I assume every program does the same thing. This would have been 5th in the entire position group if it was at the combine. That's because it's harder to do it at the combine. That's why it would have been 5th at the Pro Day. So I get it why they don't run, but it's awesome that Love will do it. I will find a television when Jeremiah Love runs the 40, which is not something you normally do.
I get, at the combine, it's a little bit outside of your comfort zone, whereas, you're running on your home field or your home indoor carpet. And you understand why you got to be calculated in your decision.
Yeah. Let's talk about something fun before we get to two things that aren't fun. You guys took in the gold medal game as well on Sunday morning. That was fun. Tim Priester, do you remember the poster that warned us to make sure we watch this going into the? And you said I will monitor this, because we kind of gave it the short shrift.
I remember commenting, but I don't remember the poster's name. Are you're asking me, or you remember?
Yeah, no, I'll look for it. I want to give him some credit, because I think I tuned in a little more because of that. Him reminding me that this is going to be fun.
Well, and then when it was U.S. and Canada, it was absolute must see TV.
Well, and it was also to see that could the U.S. complete the sweep in hockey after the captivating win for the women that I just was working mid-afternoon and happened to flip the TV on and caught all of the third quarter and the overtime session in the women's gold medal game. Maybe that was Thursday. I can't remember exactly which day it was, but that was cool, and certainly a great Olympics and a really compelling hockey event. Hard to believe 46 years since the Miracle on Ice. TP, you were just like about 9 years old at that time or something.
Maybe more like 20, but fair enough.
John's trouble with math.
The game, the men's game, like there was the crowd and the style of play was frantic the
Yeah.
whole time. I mean, it was guys just going. I mean, playing balls to the wall hockey. I guess that would be pucks to the wall.
I don't think it's that type of balls they're talking about.
That's true.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah, yeah.
true.
It is. All small.
It was. I mean, it was tremendous. The crowd was tremendous, and I turned to Lori and said, I mean, everything about this is frantic, and it's 8 o'clock in the morning our time. But it was tremendous, and social media. I'm so done with it. So they played 3-on-3. And Canada lost, and then all of a sudden, well, that's a bad thing. We'll bitch about anything. I mean, why would Canada be any less prepared to go 3-on-3? And I realize they feel like they outplayed the United States. They certainly outshot them, and I get that. But even that 3-on-3 was spectacularly frantic.
Yeah, I get the argument. I wish I didn't click on those things either. I do get the argument. I mean, Canada won in overtime earlier in the tournament though, as did the U.S. So I mean, they weren't complaining when they won in overtime about the rules, right?
Right.
Exactly.
That matters a little bit.
Well, and all encompassing, I would contend that particularly the tension and drama and the emotion and passion with which both teams played yesterday is what every other team sport on the globe endeavors to have in its signature moments. That was pinnacle performance.
It wouldn't even have occurred to me if the U.S. had lost to complain about 3-on-3.
Right.
Those are the rules.
Yeah, I guess.
I
Yeah,
mean,
I guess I'm not a diehard enough hockey person where if you change some rules for basketball or football, or if they did for baseball, Tim, like the guy on second base.
Well, I like
Second
I
base.
like I like that.
I like
rule.
that in the regular season because it moves things along. I'm not sure I
Absolutely.
like it in a championship setting. But I get purists were mad about it. But I mean, you're both teams play by the same rules. That's the situation.
Somebody's mad when Providence is playing Seton Hall. Somebody's mad after every game. So
Well, someone's gonna be mad about this, and it might be on our podcast because there is a story in the Houston Chronicle. Texas AD Chris Del Conte noted that the Notre Dame Texas series that is set for later this decade is in limbo. I get it because you don't know if you're going to be a 12 or 16 team playoff. JB, I'll throw it to you first. Would you think a 16 team playoff announced for those seasons, which is 28 and 29, would push them to play Notre Dame because you could afford a loss more than a 12 team playoff?
Yeah, I think the expansion of the playoffs is sort of the underlying critical component here, not just for this Notre Dame Texas series, but for a number of SEC series that have been scheduled out there. Because again, this is the first time that the SEC is going to a 9-game schedule. They'll tell you it was already a 10-game schedule when it was an 8-game schedule, just because that's how good the SEC believes itself to be. So a 9-game schedule must be like a 12-game conference schedule for most mere mortals. But that's that. Yeah, that's the gist of it. Is this is a way of trying to push towards expansion, and it's not dead. They just didn't get it done in time this past January when they were meeting on the heels of that championship game. But yeah, that's key. And again, people hate it. I completely get it. Like I hate that the Notre Dame USC series has temporarily ended, but these leagues that are playing 9 games or moving to 9 games, Notre Dame's going to have a little bit harder and harder time scheduling.
I believe, JB, you and I were together in a meeting with Pete Bavacqua last summer when Bavacqua brought up negotiating with Del Conte and really pray. Was that were you? Are we? Am I talking about the same meeting?
I know which meeting you're talking about. I was not there. I think T.O. might have been there with you, but that's
My apologies. I'm
no,
sorry.
you're good. You're good. But you're accurate.
You weren't
about
invited,
that.
John. We didn't want you to know about that, but you were invited. There was an early
And
notice.
yeah, there's a strong friendship there between the Del Contes and Paul Berrettini and I mean, excuse me, not Paul Berrettini and Pete Bavacqua. You can tell who just called me, but
If I see policy,
literally
I will
just
mention
called me.
something.
But no, actually, it's the Folger family that has endowed, Chris Del Conte's position at the University of Texas, and also has served on some of the boards at the University of Notre Dame. And so that family has bridged a really remarkable relationship between two of the powerhouse, very well regarded athletics directors anywhere in the country.
Notre Dame men's basketball will welcome Duke on Tuesday. Most likely number one Duke, as number one and number two lost this weekend, and number three Duke beat number one Michigan. So I have a feeling number one Duke is coming to South Bend, Indiana for a sellout crowd. I'm going to borrow from Tom Noy here because he talked to me about this. But if Micah Shrewsbury was a little annoyed that a small contingent of Louisville fans took over the Purcell Pavilion. There's going to be a bit of a contingent of Duke fans at this game, too, because there always has been Duke and North Carolina fans showing up in droves, even when Notre Dame is very good at basketball, which they are not. Before I give you some fun trivia, I will turn over what you have labeled it, the ND Hoops tragic comedy discussion to end segment one.
JB, you were on the coverage there on Saturday. Go for it.
Yeah, look, just atrocious shooting throughout the first half, particularly. I mean, 20 points. We've seen some first half clunkers from Notre Dame, including a 21-point first half performance under Micah Shrewsbury, in which they ended up getting a win. And that was this season at Stanford when they scored 47 points and managed to win that road game. But 20 points in the opening half is the lowest first half scoring output in any ACC game in Micah Shrewsbury's tenure. It continues to just be a train wreck. No Jalen Harrelson. That probably did mean the difference in a win in this game. But, Pitt entered as basically the worst team in the league, and now Notre Dame, already in a precarious position, is in real danger of the absolute embarrassment of missing the ACC tournament. And only the top 15 teams make it. They were right there on the cut line going into that game. They swapped places with Pitt now, with both at 3-11, I believe. And Pitt obviously owns the head-to-head tiebreaker, and as you noted, expected to be number one Duke in town. John Shire already posting some pictures on social media today from Chicago. They went by the Wieners Circle, the entire Duke squad, to have lunch there near John Shire's old home and old stomping grounds. So Duke has arrived into the Midwest and making their way over to South Bend. And I've been to some of those Duke games even before I was working up here in South Bend. I went to a couple of those, and there will be a heavy Duke presence, as you note, Tim O'Malley.
Tim, for a basketball program that kind of prides itself on being a three-point shooting team, that way too often they are a poor three-point shooting team. And what Serta and Shrewsbury combined for 4 for 25 from three? Was that what it was?
Yeah.
And then defensively to allow, I know it was 50-48 in the second half, but to allow Pittsburgh to score 50 points in the second half, it's
Pittsburgh scoring 50, not Duke coming back and scoring 50 on you too.
That's exactly right.
Well, and
I don't know what
note I would have is that Ryder Frost was really good off the bench, and he got 17 minutes, and he made 4 of your 9 3-point attempts, and he took 5 shots, and 17 minutes, 0 turnovers, an assist, a couple of boards. Like, that guy's the epitome of earn more minutes, and nobody knows why he didn't get them, because you had 38 minutes for Shrewsbury and 38 for Cole Serta, and as you noted, they were 4 for 25 from 3 and 8 for 33 overall.
I've been a Ryder Frost proponent since I saw him practice in the summer.
You have.
You guys know that the note that I put out in our group text during a game about Garrett Sundra, and I realize that his playing time has diminished, but we're talking about a guy that I don't know how many games he started early on, but he's averaging 18 minutes per game. He scored a total of 100 points this year. He has 12 assists. 12 assists.
I thought I had the worst stat for
on the season. I mean, what kind of
what's worse?
What kind of court vision do you have when you play as much as he does? And it's diminishing, but I don't understand. Like, Ryder Frost and Garrett Sundra don't play exactly the same role within. What does it matter? I mean, what justified Garrett Sundra getting starts early in the year? And look, I'm not on the practice court, so I mean, I hate people making judgments when they don't see everything that's happening behind closed doors. But what we see what we see with open doors is a player, another example of a player that has logged way too many minutes when a guy like Ryder Frost's upside is vastly higher.
Notre Dame last hosted and won over number one in 2012. Tim Priest, you remember that game against Syracuse? The illustrious Fab Mello did not play. That didn't hurt the situation. Previously, it had been since 1987 with Digger beating UNC. It's when the student body had the "Just Say Yes" placards. That was pretty funny. I don't think they can have those anymore. But I think Digger won two. He won UCLA, the famous one, Marquette, USF, DePaul, North Carolina. So Digger won five. Johnny D won one against number one. Bray won one. And this is the first time anyone's coming close to top five visiting South Bend, Indiana, which is really weird. Notre Dame beat North Carolina, number two, in
It's
2016.
it's not weird, Tim. They're in the ACC.
That's a valid point because they used to get number two Duke and number two North Carolina in here all the time. That's a great point. I didn't think about that. Yeah, and it's been a while since they've even played number one. The last time I had to look this one up. See, I do look things up for Notre Dame basketball once in a while. They played at number one Virginia on senior day and only lost by five in 2017. I don't remember that because I did not think they're going to win the game.
Yeah,
It's we've got a few questions on Notre Dame basketball.
yeah. I was just going to jump into that.
With a little bit right here, so we don't have to devolve them in segment two. We can keep them out of the segment two completely. The question, let's go forward because we think we already know what's bad. ND Dan wonders. Oh, by the way, Preacher, there were a few questions on your over under 4 wins, but I'm just going to skip those. ND Dan asks, what has to change next year for them to be a competitive team?
Well, first of all, the over/under. I knew they'd lose to SMU. I knew they'd lose to Duke. I anticipate them losing to NC State, but I thought that they had enough will and fortitude to beat Florida State at home. They didn't. To beat Georgia Tech at home, they did. To beat Pitt on the road, they didn't. And like you, Tim, I was thinking that road game at BC
It's tough.
is one that would be really tough. But at this point, it doesn't matter. What has to change next year for them to be a competitive team? Like how many steps? We're talking about so many steps to get to competitive without knowing who's staying and who's going.
Let's say everybody's there. We're going to do everybody's there, and they bring in one guy for tout who is a good player that is a top.
Not Paul. Yeah,
He's a
not
starter.
Paul.
They
Not
starter.
Paul Atkinson, but
No, not Paul Atkinson, but a starter that shoots free throws well.
well, they should be above 500. But what does should be matter at this point?
JB.
Well, and you know, what an indictment of your program if you're going into year four saying if they stay healthy, if they return basically their roster intact and make one very solid addition, they should be 500. They should be 18 and 15 or 18 and 16. Like that's behind the curve. That's behind the pace. Like that's poor. There's no other way to put it. I understand there's some questions about how quickly some other programs have turned around.
Yeah, how do you feel about that, JB, with Pat Kelsey turning around a really bad Louisville program? But it was a really bad Louisville program that just prior to that was really good. I guess Notre Dame was really
look,
good too. So
yeah, in this era, Louisville right now is spending more than it ever has on basketball and football at the same time. That's never happened. That's because they love Kelsey and they've got Brom, their favorite son, back home. But Louisville is spending, and that's the key. Kelsey had a great run at College of Charleston and could bring every single one of those guys with him that he wanted to. He brought a number of them. He was more active in the transfer portal because of that. He had really no parameters within the transfer portal other than being able to negotiate deals. Let's not forget that Louisville is in that mode that we heard Mylan Graham talk about on Ohio State last week in terms of like online classes, and not everywhere admits you if you've only taken online classes. And I think Notre Dame probably encountered that maybe in the football portal this past time. And so I would note that because of that, Pat Kelsey has had more resources than Micah Shrewsbury and had more runway than Micah Shrewsbury. I say all that to not excuse how putrid Notre Dame basketball is. And I had all the stats, but the most damning to me, and I think we're all in agreement here because Lord knows I've said it, but it's the worst we've seen the ACC in our collective lifetimes as far as I know. And Notre Dame on average is winning 1 out of every 3 ACC games it plays under Micah Shrewsbury. It's 18 and 36. That's not a small sample size anymore.
No,
and you've gone the wrong way.
obviously Louisville has the ability to bring players in a way that Notre Dame doesn't. But having said that, we obviously also we had Pat Kelsey on the short list of replacements for Mike Bray. Loved him. Loved the coach at Drake. And JB, you mentioned the guys that he brought with him from College of Charleston. Who'd Shrewsbury bring with him from Penn State?
Yeah, I know.
Keba Jai.
Right.
He's not active right now. There's another guy missing. I like to point that out because people always say they're missing Keba Jai and Marcus Burton, if it's the same thing. We get asked this question every single podcast, and I don't put it on there for obvious reasons. We're going to ask right now because I think we're in agreement. Micah Shrewsbury will coach Notre Dame next year. Do you agree?
Yes.
I agree.
Okay, and I'll ask Drew and Pete when they can come on too, and I will move on to segment 2, burning up the boards after this. But they get asked that a lot. There's a couple of questions asked a lot. It's important to sometimes go on the record with that one, but we're all in agreement. There will be a year 4 for Micah Shrewsbury. We'll be back with segment 2, burning up the boards. Welcome back to segment 2, burning up the boards. Hopefully this is as exciting as our between the segment conversation we just had about Notre Dame's men's basketball program, but we will see. Question number 1 from longtime subscriber Wash ND. When looking at CJ Carr video of giving gifts to the offensive line, the rows of linemen appear to be split up by starters, backups, and third string. I am, first of all, very impressed by Wash ND pulling this up. They also appear to be set up left to right as a line would be constructed, and the starting row showed Will Black, Anthony Knapp, Ashton Craig, Sullivan Absher, and Gerby Lambert. Lambert moving to right tackle is expected at this point, but have you heard anything about Knapp moving to guard? Because it looked like Black was getting a shot there at left tackle.
I hesitate to put too much stock in what we saw, the order. Well, first of all, I mean, Craig's not going to be ready for the start of the season. And if you're going to move Knapp, I guess you'd move him to guard because Otting played certainly well enough. Lambert moving to right tackle would not be a surprise. I mean, I get it. I haven't heard anything about Knapp moving to guard, but that would be the logical move if you were, well, I don't know necessarily logical because Black was playing some guard last year. But interesting. I think the entire spring is going to be one of us talking about what configuration they have, and I think it'll be a pretty fluid situation.
Yeah. You said Craig's not going to be ready. You mean for spring ball, right?
For spring
right,
ball,
TP.
yeah.
I do mean for spring ball. He should be ready for the start of the fall. Yeah.
Yeah, I was making sure that we were on the same page there because I completely agree with you there. I think in speaking with people, there's some cross training going on, very similar to what has been undergone and continues to be unfolding with Christian Gray getting work at nickel. I think that Anthony Knapp is, from what I understand, just doing some cross training and getting some time there at guard. So, and it makes sense. Like they've talked in the past about wanting those guys to have that versatility in their toolkit. Will Black, we saw him work at guard last year. We all knew that wasn't necessarily his natural position. It was about the needs. And, in some regards, I would say, and I'm sure we'll get to ask him, Will Black's probably better off now at tackle because he's learned what the guy next to him is supposed to be doing at all times because he worked at guard last fall.
I like this is one of those where two things, and I really appreciate Wash ND pulling this because it's an interesting way of it's February when you look at offensive linemen, so it's good. It's not March yet. The people that absolutely had to move Anthony Knapp out of left tackle last year were weird because you were putting in an inexperienced guy there no matter what, and he was going to hold down the fort. But anyone that says he absolutely has to play left tackle his whole career would be making a mistake as well. You could put Anthony Knapp interior. We've said center. You could play him at guard. I mean, there's guys. Alex Bars moved from tackle to guard. Steve Elmer moved from tackle to guard. Christian Lombard tackle to guard and back. Like in college football, there is no doubt to me that Anthony Knapp could be better at another position. I just think he was their best left tackle last year. So if Joe Rudolph thinks maybe they can have a better left tackle this year, I like that if he wants.
Knapp doesn't have typical guard size. He's over 300 now, but that's
player. He's a good.
No, he is.
Yeah.
He is. But obviously you can play with a little bit less weight to tackle as opposed to guard generally speaking. But it's a spring. I know Joe Rudolph gets a lot of there's a lot of conversation about Joe Rudolph in other circles in our in the media, but
He's open to many things.
yeah, he's open to a lot of things. And that's what the spring is for. So that's why I'm looking forward to the variations that we may see and talk about through spring.
Two-parter here. First from K. Beasley. Is the bar set a bit too high for Leonard Moore that anything short of unanimous All-American would be disappointing? And on a related note, does the Moore-Malachi-Tony matchup in November feel like it could make or break the Thorpe Award? I included this because that would be the first Thorpe Award for a Notre Dame football player, which is crazy because they've had some good ones, including Xavier Watts. My follow-up is, can you guys recall like expectations higher for a player at Notre Dame than Leonard Moore? And like to be perfect at corner. We have anointed, like, I think CJ Carr still has growing to do. Leonard Moore just seems like it's like, all right, it's locked down over there, wherever he goes, everything's fine. It's been a while since you looked at a player coming into a season like that.
Yeah, JB.
Yeah, I think that I wouldn't call it disappointing. Football is a weird thing, and Leonard Moore burst onto the scene and became a freshman All-American because of an injury to someone else. So it would be the only thing that would be disappointing to me out of Leonard Moore in 2026 would be for him not to get to play the duration of the season for any reason whatsoever. Otherwise, I think his bona fides speak for themselves, and I think it's going to be hard for him because I think we saw it last year. We'll see it more and more, especially until the rest of that supporting cast proves themselves. Leonard Moore is not going to get a ton of action. Now, Notre Dame's doing some stuff and showing some flexibility in its willingness to bring him around in different spots on the field, and that certainly helps Notre Dame in the here and now. It helps Leonard Moore big picture as well. But I wouldn't say that. I don't, however, think there's anybody that I believe is better going into 2026 at that position, or honestly, I'm not sure. I think there's anybody in any secondary anywhere that I think is better than Leonard Moore. He just his football intelligence marries so well with just an extreme physical toolkit that is pretty remarkable. Like he is the prototype of what the NFL is looking for. He reminds me of Nick Eamon, I think, a little bit in terms of recent guys who have come out that have that great frame and long arms.
Long arms, man. That was so noticeable in its high school film. He kind of had a funny running gait at the time, but the long arms were always very obvious. Tim, in answer to your question, the first guy that came to mind for me was Brady Quinn in 2006.
After his great year.
Right,
Yeah.
because he had such a great junior year. When he was just shy of 4,000 passing yards in '05 as a junior with 37 touchdowns and 7 interceptions. He didn't quite reach that. They ran the ball a little bit better in '06. So he was about 500 yards behind what he had been, but then topped his 32 touchdowns with 37. That was the first name that came to mind for me. As far as
Love you could throw out there, but I mean, Jeremiah Love would be up there, but maybe not nationally.
certainly, yeah,
We all thought high praise for him, but
yeah. Like JB said, I mean, just a healthy year for Leonard Moore so he can play the full year. My level of thought and concern to unanimous All-American and Thorpe Award is
he would like
five.
it,
Yeah, no, it would be fantastic, and he's probably, he's well set up to. He goes into the season as the favorite, so he just kind of needs to hold serve and keep playing like Leonard Moore can play. I'm just saying, unanimous All-American and Thorpe Award. I'm more concerned about 12-0 during the regular season than any kind of accolades individually.
I get that. But like when you're first team All-American unanimous, you're up for the Hall of Fame. When you're not, you're not.
Right.
I
Yeah.
mean, there are things involved in it, but of course, he'd be either be 12-0 too. But those things do count a little bit. It's not like being drafted 6 or 7 or something along those lines.
I rarely think in terms of Hall of Fame, but you're absolutely right, Tim. If he has a great year, he absolutely is a college football Hall of Fame candidate.
It's 3 great years would be.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got 10 career turnovers forced in 26 games. He's got 25 passes defended in 26 games. So he's breaking up a pass on average essentially every game he plays. We know he scored a defensive touchdown.
Blocked a field goal. He's blocked a field goal.
The other advanced metrics of how poorly teams fare and trying to complete passes against him are insane. So yeah, I do think the point about the Tony matchup, as long as both those guys are healthy, and that at least Miami is still on the fringe of where we expect Notre Dame to be at that time in November when the two teams meet, then yeah, that could be an award tone setting matchup.
Two of the 10 best players in college football could be going at it for 60 snaps if Leonard Moore follows Malachi Tony. That would be fantastic to watch.
Well, the matchup with Makai Lemon last season was
Oh
really
yeah,
fun to watch
oh yeah.
as well. Yeah, Leonard. Well, think about how many passes defense did Julian Love have
Yeah, he broke the
his
record.
junior year?
Yeah, they played a lot of zone, a lot more zone, but he had 23. If you include interceptions and pass breakups, he had 23. So I think he had
Incredible.
20 passes defended with 3 picks. Yeah, that was incredible. He had a great year.
That's pretty awesome. JB, you're up.
Yes, I am. Thank you for that. I appreciate the prompt. Question number 3 from NJL Irish. Last year, the strength of the offense was running back. Is this year the wide receiver strength? TP, let's start with you, sir.
Potentially, I really, Tim. I don't think it was an accident that you put this question
Yeah,
next to number 4. Correct?
correct. Yes.
Should I go ahead and jump into that since
Yeah, we can do both.
well, I mean, I think it's relevant
Yep,
because
I agree.
plus I'm due up to ask that question from Maltese Irish. Does either of Mylan Graham's comments regarding Ohio State's coaching staff, quote, agreeing it was best for him to move on, unquote, and his hesitation to commit once he learned Porter did, does that give you the slightest pause as to his ability and or desire to compete? My answer to that question is absolutely yes. I felt the same way as you, Maltese Irish, when I said that. Potentially, I think the wide receiver core is that, the best on the offensive side of the ball. I also still believe that the offensive line is a candidate for that when you get Craig back, when you get Jagisa back. There are so many good moving parts there that potentially could be the best one. But high hopes for the wide receiver core. With you have 5 freshmen that came in as well as the 2 transfers with Jordan Faison, Jaden Greathouse leading the way moving in. So yeah, it's certainly possible.
My quick answer is since quarterback is the best position by far on the team, it can make wide receiver the best group. Can't include quarterback, obviously, as the group if it's just CJ. So yeah, it could. I was not concerned about Graham's comments, the first part with coaches sitting down and saying it's best to move on. That's why all the transfers move on, is because they're not going to get the playing
Well,
time they
so
want.
you say it was less. It was a little disingenuous.
No, no, I think that's why transfers. I think if you asked other people, they would be genuine in their answer. But I wanted to move on because
But you just lost Carnell Tate. You have Jeremiah Smith in his last year. This is
we lost
quote
your
one of
receiver coach, and maybe the new receiver coach thought maybe it's best to move on. I want some new guys in here too.
maybe, but I mean he's a number 2 receiver at Ohio State, and you just lost one of your starters. It struck me the same way it did Maltese Irish. Like what's the deal there? Why does the Ohio State coaching staff feel that way?
I would say for me that I think quarterback is the ringleader of the best offensive position groups. Now, it's not the most deep position group. It doesn't have the greatest depth, but for singularity, I think we all pretty much agree that this CJ Carr is very real with his potential to become a consensus projected first round draft pick in 2027. And so because of that, I would give it. And then I would go honestly to the offensive line after that because I do love the overall experience. They've played a lot of snaps together. I like the young talent coming up there. Sure, they've got a couple of guys that they need back from injury and need them to perform well. But obviously, the work that Absher and Gerby Lambert got last year moving forward, I just think all of those things help Notre Dame this year. So that's not a knock on the wide receiver room at all. I think it's the best by far that it's been. Obviously, under Marcus Freeman, you guys have better perspective for
No, not
how
under Marcus
well.
Freeman. We don't have better perspective. You're absolutely right.
Yeah.
They
But
haven't
I
even
mean,
had
going back,
receivers.
it's the deepest
Yeah,
since when Claypool and Fink and those guys. It's deeper than
yeah.
that one.
Yeah.
It may so all of that, like I really like those three. I mean,
Yeah.
to me, you look and you say you don't really know about the running back group, and you don't really know about the tight end group. You feel like you know a hell of a lot about those other three offensive groups. So that's kind of how I would answer that. In terms of Mylan Graham, like all those things you guys said, I get it. Also, something we've talked about on this, they could have encouraged him to move on or said this is a mutual parting of ways for monetary reasons as well. Who knows how much they're devoting to Jeremiah Smith to get him back. He did lose his position coach, the guy that recruited him, the guy that plucked him out of Indiana to begin with, and on and on. So I think there are a number of factors of that.
I think everyone leaves for opportunity and money. One of the two things, or both of the two things, right? Josh Burnham, I don't think is hiding from being a good player. He's going to go to IU and play more snaps for the national champions. So
I,
that's not like he's not going to Mississippi State to play more snaps. He's going to the national champions to play more snaps. Pretty good. Pretty good move.
and I would imagine Mylan Graham's deal
That's
with Notre Dame is more lucrative than it would have been at Ohio State. I just think it's funny that a guy that's, in your rotation and you just lost a
yeah,
first
he
round, a
probably
probable first round draft pick.
so he would get in the rotation, right? I mean, he was in the rotation kind of.
Yeah,
I mean,
you're
he
right.
had 12,
You're right.
12 targets on the year is not enough for him to be in his mind. I feel like that most people transfer the reason that Mylan Graham transferred. I was surprised he said Quincy Porter coming here briefly, like made me think twice. But that's just adding another really good player
Yeah.
to a room is one way of looking at it.
Well, it's funny because I'm looking at putting something together on Jaden Sanders. And I mean, Jaden Sanders started a couple games as a freshman at Michigan. Maybe the whole Michigan situation's
Yeah.
not nearly as beneficial to him as what Notre Dame is. But as we get deeper into the transfer portal area, you see different reasons as to why guys transfer. But obviously, a significant part of it is money. But some guys and we've talked about this in years past, that there's going to be some established players that are going to, they've proven themselves at one program and they're going to leave, and you're going to be like, damn, he's leaving. Jeremiah Smith was enticed by a lot of money to leave Ohio State. Some big name player very, very soon is going to jump at that.
Our next question from East Tex 903, and he very kindly explained to me that East Texas 903 is the reason that he writes it out. We were saying his name wrong somehow, or I was.
Oh,
But the
okay.
question is for you, Priester. I cut it down a little bit for podcast versions. He recalled a reference you made to Jamie Spencer, who he saw film review on way back in the day. So he asks you, Priester, when did high school highlight tapes actually become a real part of the recruiting process? Before that, do you know how programs evaluated talent? Was it mostly on individual recruiters' eyes?
They called Joe Terranova and asked him who he thought was the top.
That was good.
They checked the Parade All American list in the newspaper and went by that. You had like Bird Dog. There were scouts all over the country. I knew multiple guys in California that helped Notre Dame recruit. They would go about it that way. We started gathering VHS tapes, which
I was wondering when you got VHS tapes.
mid 90s. Okay. When it really started to take off. I was with Blue and Gold Illustrated. Bob Nagel and I would go to the studio at WHME. I had a couple boxes of VHS tapes, and we would methodically go through play by play and snag that, and just kind of string them together. Jamie, I love Jamie Spencer, man. He
remembers you talking about that, I think.
Yeah, no, I love Jamie Spencer. He was a big back. He came after Jerome Bettison, so you had that kind of thought. Really aesthetic runner, probably pad level was a little bit too high. But when you're going through VHS tapes and you're trying to grab snippets here and snippets there, and what number is he? And it wasn't clear. I literally can remember Bob Davie was the head coach, and he asked me to come see him in his office, and he was like really sheepish, and he's like, I hate to tell you this, but some of those clips that you have of Jimmy Friday, those aren't Jimmy Friday.
Oh no. But he ended up being really good, so you're fine.
He ended up being really good, and I don't know who the other dude was, but I thought he was pretty good too. They had a hell of a linebacker tandem coming out of, I believe, Texas. Jimmy
Yeah,
Friday
Texas
was.
also, yeah.
Yeah. But
And that guy went to Miami, won 2 national titles, Priester. Sorry.
you'd get VHS tapes, and now you highlight them. You can see the players highlighted. You didn't have that, and it's like I think in the case of Jimmy Friday, I just wasn't told what his number was, and I thought that was him because he was the guy making all the plays. So it was pretty archaic, and it took a long time to piece that together. But Nagel and I had a lot of fun with it, and it really was. I mean, it's really a little bit groundbreaking. I don't think anybody was doing that.
Before I put a bow on this, JB, go ahead.
I was just going to say real quickly, I've talked to coaches, especially second generation coaches who maybe followed their fathers into college coaching, who have talked about remembering riding with their dads to go pick up VHS tapes for recruiting purposes, especially in the 80s. And so that was a common theme. It might have been if you had a game on if your college program had a game on Saturday, then they usually rotated. Sunday morning there would be somebody different assigned to drive and go pick up VHS tapes before staff meetings in the afternoon so that the staff could look at high school prospects from Friday night from their VHS tapes. So that's I know that was a very common thing back in the 80s.
I
Did I
believe I
mention?
have. Oh, go ahead, Tim.
Did I mention Mike McNair? Of course, because everybody Mike McNair.
No, but he's part of the Irish Illustrated drinking game, I think.
Well,
That's a
he
huge one.
he probably should be because in retrospect, I think this is correct. His high school tape was slightly sped up. I loved
I've
Mike
heard this
McNair.
part before.
I loved Mike McNair.
Well, yeah, you should speed up Jeremiah Love and see how fast.
And it was the way I remember it was real subtle. I mean, it wasn't like, oh my God, the tape is sped up. It's like,
Yeah.
man, this big dude can run. The way I remember in retrospect was that was part of why I evaluated him so high. It was prehistoric, man.
I think I have the 2007 blue and gold recruiting video DVD. I think it's you and Bob Kamel and someone else.
Kamel would join Bob Nagel and I on
Yeah.
occasion.
And the
Yes.
07 and '08 were bad teams, but good classes coming in. So that would be a fun
Yeah.
one to look back at. I'll try to send that along.
All right, question number 6. Irish Gambler. I think T.O. mentioned Joey O'Brien pushing for playing time this fall. I believe that was actually last Thursday's podcast. Are you thinking a rotational player with folks like Luke Talich, Ethan Long, and or Logan, or are you thinking he'll create some separation from those guys? T.O., I will start with you.
Yeah, I want to start with I think Luke Talich will create separation from number 4. I think Luke Talich is going to play a big role. He's a backup, but he is the very trusted backup. But I think Joey O'Brien. The Ethan Long is, I think, proven to be underrated. We started talking about that when we first saw him talking to coaches once they got him on campus. But if Joey O'Brien's properly rated and Ethan Long's underrated, Joey O'Brien coming in early has a chance to push for time that would have been very hard if he came in June. Because now he gets to learn from Chris Ash, the defensive coordinator, and a guy that's going to spend a lot of time in the defensive backfield. Even though there's 2 new coaches there at safety and corner, you don't have Mike Mickens back there anymore. I think Chris Ash and we'll have a Joey O'Brien pet project if he can pick it up because you need 4. Notre Dame plans on playing 15, 16 games. You need 4, and Joey O'Brien is a guy that you can. I mean, he's not anywhere near a starter. I'm not saying that at all. Like Tay Johnson and Don Schuler might be the best tandem in the country. But you really need a 4th over that long of a haul to help them out.
Yeah, I don't anticipate him like really challenging Luke Talich for the number 3 spot. Luke Talich is a quality college football player, and he proves it every time he gets an opportunity to play a game for Notre Dame. But I mean, it's a good. I think Ethan Long's got a lot of savvy to him as well, but he's not nearly as far along as Luke Talich, and so from that standpoint, yeah, Joey O'Brien. I had doubts about Joey O'Brien from his senior film because I've said it several times. I just didn't think. I mean, his length is incredible and he plays the ball. I just didn't think his change of direction from high school film was at the level it should be. But that may have just been. I don't necessarily want to say a bias, but I may not have just seen it correctly. So he absolutely has a chance to be number 4.
I mean, I feel like we first all started to notice. I mean, we saw Luke Talich make some plays in practice and things like that, but we saw Luke carve his way into being trusted by what he was doing on special teams. I expect the same from Joey O'Brien. He'll be a core four guy who then grows into a greater and greater role in the secondary. But Luke Talich, I think, would start. I don't know, ballpark 40 other power conference teams. I mean, that guy's a ball player. Like he's a tremendous ball player, and he's arguably the whatever you want to call the first safety off the bench, the de facto sixth man. He's arguably the best first safety off the bench that I'm aware of anywhere in college football.
Oh, that's an interesting one. That's yeah. I mean, well, when you consider how good the first two are, it's not like even I mean, it's rotational, but the first two are so obvious. He is definitely the number three safety. That's it. If you look at it that way, that's a really
Right.
good. That yeah, that's a really good. That's interesting. I hadn't thought of it
Yeah.
that way.
He's a he's a third starter at this point of his
Yeah, that's a
development.
good way to say it.
Question number 7 is from Air Pirate 73. Coach Charlie Partridge is known for his ability to create sacks with 4 defensive linemen. Can we break the all-time sack record at Notre Dame this year?
So the all-time sack record is 1996, 41 and a half. Kind of weird because they only played 11 games. That was when they also turned down the bowl when that was Lou Holtz's last year. They got close in 2021, Brian Kelly's last year, to make this less popular for people listening, with 40. And then Al Washington's first year, they had 38. And those three are the most by a pretty wide margin. So they've actually come close to breaking the sack record under Brian Kelly and the guy that Charlie Partridge is replacing, Al Washington, of late. Do you guys think the problem is getting home? Like there's two things here. Brian Kelly and Al Washington have one thing in common. They had Isaiah Foskey getting home and getting sacks. So the sacks were recorded. They weren't just pressures. Like I still contend, Tim, that Julian Okwara was a better pass rusher than Isaiah Foskey getting 9 sacks.
Oh,
Those guys,
when
yeah.
you needed them, you got them. You didn't always get that with Foskey.
Right. That's how I look at it. So I think if Boubacar Traore becomes the finisher like Foskey, then you get into the range there. And if you play 15 games, 16 games, that's a fun way to break a sack record too. Break that in the championship game with a fourth quarter sack fumble, and then it's a good stat.
JB?
Yeah, I mean, if they play 16 games, then yeah, I think they're capable of, or 15 or 14. But the records just change so much now because of the duration of the season. But I
Yes.
do think that Charlie Partridge is elite. I've made that very clear. I think I've awarded him an A+ hiring grade last week, and I have no reason to doubt that he is going to be and is already being an instant impact.
The last four-man pass rush was the 19 team, the 18 and 19 team. Since then, they have been manufacturing pass rushes, which is there's nothing. I mean, that's football. You manufacture pass rush, but it would be great if they get back to a four-man rush where you just think these four guys can put their hands down and go get a quarterback, because then Chris Ash can do some crazy stuff on that back end with all the talent he has back there. Hey, I quickly texted Alan Wazalewski at Notre Dame because I said, did Ross Browner's teams have more sacks? Because Alan has been doing a great job going back with all the old game by game, play by play stat sheets. And remember, they played fewer games. They weren't playing more than 11 ever here because you'd play 10 and then the bowl, usually, or 11 and then usually 10 in the bowl game. He said that Ross Browner and crew in 77 got to 37. So that's not the sack record either. And he's like, look, there could have been a couple more that weren't called
Right,
sacks,
right.
but they didn't shatter any records there. So that's a real record. 41 and a half in 1996 is a real record because if Ross Browner's 4.5 short, I think that makes it a real record.
Well, I think the key is, how good Boubacar Traore is under Partridge's direction. Another key is, like, I'm going to say this until the season starts. I expect Bryce Young to take a significant step up.
I do too.
He's Bryant Young's son, number one. Number two, I think he's got a lot of ability. He's trimmed down a little bit. I mean, he's Bryce Young. I expect him to take a significant step forward. If him and Traore do that together, then you've really got something. But they don't have a ton of depth there. I mean, Keon Keeley still needs to prove himself as a pass rusher. And then beyond that, this has been a message board discussion on Irish Illustrated's Four Horsemen Lounge. A lot of talk about Logan Thomas and his size. I get a real kick about being told over and over again about the reputable media outlets that are saying that 207 is wrong. Okay, you go ahead and cling to that and don't listen to what we have to say about it, but he needs to gain weight. He's not at 227 is what everybody suggested. So they don't have a lot of depth there. I think Francis Brew is going to create a lot of pass rush situations for the defensive linemen around him because you have to account for that strong guy, and he is incredibly strong.
For the record, the 1996, you had 10, 9, 8 in terms of sacks from your best guys was Burt Berry, longtime NFL career. Ronaldo Wynn, longtime NFL career. Corey Minor, one of the best outside linebackers slash ends in Notre Dame recent history with 8. And then after that, there was quite a few from mixing it in with the linebacker core. But Melvin Dansby had 4, and that's a 4-man pass rush right there. I just gave you 34 sacks out of a 4-man pass rush. So probably shouldn't have gone 8-3. Let's start bagging on the 96 team again.
Dansby's last year, he was really, really good. He was long, he was big, he was long, and he was effective.
96 team bothered me, but that is the story for another podcast some other time, Tim, pretty sure. Next question from Statman72. We know that coaches and analysts break down film after every game grading player performance, yet there are never any press conference questions about grades. I, by the way, asked a couple questions about grades last year. I wouldn't expect coaches to discuss them for specific players. However, shouldn't they be willing to discuss grades for position groups? Why not ask which position group graded highest or lowest after a given game or after several games have been played? We do ask these questions, actually, but it's a good question by Statman because it would be fun to ask in our. You're not going to get a lot from Freeman here because there's no reason for him on a Monday to say who had a bad grade or a low grade. But it'd be fun to get Charlie Partridge, Jean Marie, and ask them who graded the highest in your group in the win over Wisconsin, in the win over Michigan State. I think that would be. I do like that line of questioning. JB, what do you think?
Yeah, and Marcus, especially in his Monday press conferences, will oftentimes reference maybe collectively how the O line graded or the D line graded, or he will at times specifically say person X graded out really well in that game. We liked what we saw. It was his first start. It was his most extensive action, things of that nature. But yeah, it could be an opportunity on the Tuesday assistant coaching powwows to get a little more insight there. And you're right, coaches oftentimes don't want to talk about that.
A low grade, especially.
Yeah,
a low grade.
Yeah, exactly.
I just don't think it's something that they would want to do frequently. I agree with you, Tim. Freeman wouldn't want to do it on a Monday. Here, not that I know everything that goes on in a game, but I spend Sunday reviewing the game, so I feel like I come out of that knowing who played well and who didn't. Obviously, the
You're going
coaching
to ask
staff.
about who played well more than about who didn't.
No doubt about it. But I don't know, man. I don't like. We don't get to talk coordinators. Well, how are they doing that now? I just don't.
Different assistant every week.
Yeah, different. It's now a different assistant. I just don't think. I don't think they're inclined. I mean, we can try to ask it more often, but I don't think they're inclined to start rating teammate versus teammate.
Yeah, let me think back. I don't think Al would do that. I don't think Elston would. No, it's not that I don't think Elston would have done that. Mike Elston would not have done that. Offered grades. We could ask Partridge. It's interesting. They do often. When Marcus does it, it's offensive line and defensive line. Maybe because it's such a big group, is how he will say they graded. You know, it's just that's less specific of a human being. Or if you say my quarterback graded out this way, you know who you're talking about. D'Lo McCullough, our old friend who likes to. He had great press conferences, man, in the spring. He said Aeneas Williams had a perfect day of practice. He's the only guy to have 100 the whole camp.
That's right.
And then we said, has he done it again? And he goes, not even close. So I thought that was a fun. We could maybe the spring's a good time to ask who's grading out the best in practice because that's not, not piling on there for somebody having a bad game. It's just how are they going in the spring? Final question. It's about the best player on Notre Dame's football team, maybe not named Leonard Moore, from Tally Alley. As strong as CJ Carr was last year, for him to take that next step and be a true Heisman winner, what improvements in his game are you looking for this year? We did answer this, Tally Alley, in December, but we get this question every single week also. So I want to throw it in again because I think people might have missed it.
Go ahead, John.
As I've looked at this, first of all, he's got to win the signature games, which means he needs to start out hot that Sunday against Wisconsin in Lambeau Field, and he needs to have a great day later in the season in November when Miami comes to town, and then his turnovers tended to come consecutively, or he was really good taking care of the football. The other thing I would say, 9 of the 12 games last year, CJ Carr had at least one pass for 35 or more yards. 3 of those games he did not. Long passes tend to create big highlights, and big highlights tend to create buzz. And so, those are the things. But really, it's winning and it's having your team a surefire playoff team when the end of November rolls around and you're not playing in a conference championship game and your work is done and your resume is done before the Heisman Trophy ceremony there in early December.
I think we, I think we all agreed that USC was the game where he was the most inconsistent throwing the football. And really, if you look at the week before or the game before against NC State, I think there were some indications of that. I kind of felt like he was maybe hitting a little bit of a wall at that stage of the season. But 61.3%, 61.5%, those two games were his worst of the year, except for Syracuse. But he only threw 9 passes against Syracuse. Had it been a game where it was competitive, he probably would have put up big numbers. So with me, really, it has very little to do with him throwing the football as much as it is pocket presence. And I'm not talking about standing in the pocket and throwing the football. I'm talking about the pocket has collapsed and now you've got to ad lib. He's not very good at that. It doesn't come naturally to him. The great play that he made against Miami in the opening game of the season, he retreated, and then finally got his shoulder square and came upfield. He's got to be better at that. And I've said it multiple times. I think it starts with just overall strength and maneuverability. And you've got to practice that. I mean, you have got to know how to react when the pocket collapses, and I think he showed that was the biggest of all the things that he did last year. The thing that showed him as a starter for the first time was his inability to really physically create when the pocket collapsed.
I think strength is what I said back in December. Not totally fair because he's a redshirt freshman. I compared him to Clausen. Remember, I said he's stronger than Jimmy Clausen, where Clausen's was actually his weakness in his game
Wow.
was he was not physically strong. He was like
Yeah.
strength of a normal human instead of a football player.
Right.
But I don't. I would definitely say that Notre Dame's short yardage attack suffered in that CJ Carr couldn't get under center and get a foot. You also don't want to risk an injury. We had Kenny Minchie last year. You're not going to want to risk an injured CJ Carr now, so he's not going to be doing a whole heck of a lot of shoving his head in there, I don't think. If you want to go in retrospect and nitpick, he threw 6 picks, right? Who are they against? Miami, Texas A&M, NC State, USC, and 2 against Pitt. Who are the 6 best teams they played? Those 6 teams. That's retrospect nitpicking, but it counts. I mean, he only threw 6 picks. Well, he threw 6 picks against the 6 teams that had a pulse to pick off a pass too. So I just think CJ Carr is going to be awesome this year because Tim, you made a great point. He hit the wall. All we said all offseason was he's going to hit the wall at some point. We literally said this kid is going to hit the wall at some
That
point.
yeah, that was so early in the season. It may not be fair to call it that, but that was the law. That was
the
when.
film. Yeah, it was game 5. The film was
Yeah.
out on NC State. But he'll be better than the guys. Look, he'll be better when they look at his film. He's going to be better this year. I wanted to give a shout out on our. Oh, go ahead, JB. On
No, I was
CJ.
just going to say it was actually just 5 opponents. To he had 6 picks in 5 games, and then didn't have a turnover in the other 7 games. So yeah, that's it. But again, they came in bunches. But I thought that he was playing some of his best football by the end of the year, and it's the things that we talked about there. But overall, it's you have to perform large in your large games.
Yeah. I want to give a shout out on our message board. There's a guy that does film. He does really good breakdowns on Twitter, known as the Film Guy, and was brought up on our message board. He did CJ Carr yesterday or over the weekend, and it's a good 30 minutes of watching CJ Carr. And he started to do more Notre Dame guys over the year, and it's a pretty fun one to watch for CJ Carr. I don't know I don't know his name, and I don't know his coaching background, but it'd be something to, either way, it's entertaining, Tim Priester. So that was whether it's 100% accurate or not, it's very
I,
entertaining. And he sounds
I'm aware of who you're talking about.
yeah, I think he does a good job. And I think you guys did a good job too, but we are done for the day. We will be back on Thursday, February 26th. Combine will be going at that point. Drew Mentok will be down there. I think Jeremiah Love would not be running until Friday. I probably should have checked my notes on that, but I believe that's when the running backs are running. Notre Dame will have played Duke. We'll have upset news. Notre Dame it will be Notre Dame's eighth win, I believe, against a number one ranked team at home. Tim Priester, is that eight or seven? But that's what's going to happen on Tuesday night, especially with me in attendance. For Jack Freeman shaking his head behind the camera, Tim Priester with a smile of amusement, John Bryce about to just laugh out loud. I am Tim O'Malley. Thank you for watching and listening. Irish Illustrated Insider.